Okay. Now this video is something that we had planned on doing next week. But the verses we had for this week kind of got postponed, given the fact that don't have both subject matter, like visual aids, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So since the visual aid's not there, we're not going to do a verses without any visual aid to it. So that's the reason that one's going to be on the back burner for a bit.
Yeah, because we don't want to do the Oz thing again.
No, that was just awkward. Luckily, we've never had to do that since, thankfully.
Much like indie filmmakers make their first movie in black and white because that's all they have. Our very first verses, we had to use my fucking laptop because that's all we had.
Yes, indeed. So here we have two movies. Have an underlining theme, obviously. They're both movies that are loved by cult audiences and by audiences worldwide. I actually don't know many people that don't at least like one of these movies, for sure. And
they're basically both about people who work in stores and basically trying to get out of their dead-end lives. Mm-hmm. And they both take place on Saturday.
That is correct. And to be completely 100% honest, without going any further, they both can be extremely personal. We'll go with that. So, yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that, honestly. And I got one more verses that we're doing, actually, for my birthday, and it's going to be probably the most personal one I've ever done, so we're going to go ahead and do that. But right now, we're going to be talking about a milestone in indie filmmaking in Clerks, which is my personal favorite movie of all time. I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. Saw him live in Akron, actually. It was awesome. And another movie I really enjoy, and that's Empire Records. So, AJ, take it away.
All right. We're going to start with Clerks.
All right.
Basically, Clerks was made because Kevin Smith really wanted to make a movie. He was working in a convenience store he'd been working in since he was 19,
mm-hmm.
and decided to make a movie about that. With all his friends, with what money they had. I heard he maxed out credit cards.
Yeah, lots of credit cards.
He borrowed money and got it from friends and all that. Apparently he's making a whole documentary about it right now.
Yes.
And it ended up being this groundbreaking movie that almost everybody fell in love with.
Correct.
And shot him to fame. Like, even the running joke when he talks about himself is he's always the Clerks guy. So, and give me that joke about Bruce Willis a lot when he was saying, when he was making Live Free or Die Hard, and he said, Bruce Willis is going to see me and go, oh man, I'm making a movie with the Clerks guy.
We gave our multi-million-dollar superhero movie to the Clerks guy?
So, and so Clerks was born. And that's basically what it is. I had a lot of fun when I discovered this. I actually saw Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back first. So all the in jokes went over my head, but I was 10 when that movie came out, so all I cared about was the fact that they said fuck a lot.
Yeah.
That's why I love Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back so much. And then I saw Dogma, and then I realized somebody clued me in that there was a whole universe of them.
Yes.
And that's how I started buying them all at the same time. When I was in a video store in Florida, I just got all of them. And that's how I saw Clerks. Interesting that Clerks is your all-time favorite movie when the first time I saw it was in Florida.
Yes, very appropriate.
So, basically, Dante gets called into work while he's sleeping in his closet. We have no idea what the fuck he was doing the night before. Or we don't even know if this is a regular thing for him. Maybe that's just what he does.
He sleeps in the closet. It's okay.
Because that's the most we get as far as his backstory that doesn't involve his love life, basically. So, because he buckles easily, as Randall points out, he goes ahead and goes into work because the boss says he'll be there at noon. Well, it turns out he's going to be stuck there for the rest of the day by himself because the boss went to Vermont instead.
Yep.
And nobody bothered to tell Dante.
Of course not.
And he's too stubborn to quit.
Yeah.
So he just does all his daily activities around the job. Even if that means closing the store for hours at a time. Pissing off customers left and right. But of course he's persuaded by his best friend Randall, who hates the customers and wants to piss them off left and right. So he's basically his instigator of why not just do that. And so you have the infamous scenes where they close the store, they play hockey on the roof, they close the store to go to the wake that goes horribly wrong. Randall's constantly locking the video store to go over to the Quick Stop to hang out with Dante. Is it ever confirmed if they're, like, part of the same thing?
I think they're just two mom and pop stores that were right next to each other.
Yeah, because they seem it's I can't tell if it's determined or not. They seem to kind of be in the kind of the same thing, but not really. Because Randall basically occasionally works at the Quick Stop. I don't know if he's supposed to, but he does.
No, sometimes you just kind of work behind the counter with somebody, and that's just how it works sometimes. You may not get paid for it, but sometimes you just kind of help your friends.
So basically, the great thing that Clerks did was, all it is it's people hanging out at work.
Yeah.
And that's just what they do. And what Kevin Smith did was, a lot of the critics that praised the movie said he actually outdid himself here. Because Kevin Smith was quoted as saying, Clerks has no meaning whatsoever. He just wanted to make a movie that had a lot of jokes in it.
Yep.
That's all it was to him. But then you have critics saying about how it's like a huge monumental take on Generation X.
It's a social commentary.
And how it's the whole, I think Ebert's comment was, because I'm always quoting Ebert.
Of course.
The great thing about Dante and Randall is they're like the epitome of the Generation X movies, because they don't realize they're part of the Generation X.
Yeah.
They're before it. They're like starting it. So, obviously Smith was, Jesus Christ.
I don't know where you're going with this.
Smith was... Why did that word... I have such a grasp on the English language.
I know you do.
He was very influenced by Richard Linklater's Slacker.
Correct.
Influence wasn't quite the word I was looking for. I really need a fucking thesaurus right now.
Say it first.
Oh, God. Okay. I would like to say that if you saw when I did the Ghostbusters review, Clerks is kind of giving me the same problem.
Okay.
Because Ghostbusters was this great big comedy that everybody knows and everybody quotes and everybody loves. What do you say about Clerks that people don't already know and haven't known for the longest time because they've loved the movie for as long as they've known about it?
Everyone that's talked about it has said everything under the sun about it.
Well, the thing that Clerks does that was so groundbreaking was Clerks has no sex in it. There's one sex scene that's off screen, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
There's no nudity. Nothing. The language and the way they describe sexual acts, the movie was rated NC-17.
Yep.
It's actually rated R on appeal. They actually had to get a lawyer that basically fought to get the rating taken down. Because it's just nothing but dialogue, and the MPAA gave them an NC-17. That's how graphic the dialogue is.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have, everybody in the world now knows what snowballing is.
Yeah.
When I don't think anybody in the world wanted to know what snowballing was.
No.
There's the incident with Caitlin Burry.
Yeah.
There is Randall's weird fascination with hermaphrodites.
Yeah.
He goes, the great joke about Randall is he works at a video store so shitty. He goes to a different video store to rent movies. And he's in this gigantic video store. The one box I always notice is big. I just see Tom Hanks' face right in the middle of the shelf.
Ooh, Navy SEALs.
And behind him is Cuffs with Christian Slater. I always notice that.
Him reading off his stock order, too, has always been one of my favorite scenes.
And after he's gone to this gigantic video store, and I so envy this scene because I miss video stores so much. Yes. I know how Randall feels when he just drops to his knees in the middle of it.
I can imagine that, too.
He comes back with hermaphrodite porn, of all things.
Yep. He compares it to Clash of the Titans.
And it's called The Best of Both Worlds, of course. And he just watches it with customers coming in and out, and he doesn't care at all.
Nope.
I believe the popular phrase nowadays is no fucks were given that day.
Exactly.
Actually, there is one scene of nudity, but it doesn't really count. It's the great scene with the jizz mopper.
Yeah.
When he says he's talking about what the jizz mopper is. That's another scene.
Yes.
Where we could pretty much use context clues by the title to know what that person does. But Randall tells us in great detail anyway. And of course there's a customer there that's offended. And Randall is looking at porn at the time, of course. And so his response is, well, if you think that's offensive, check this out. And he does actually show him a graphic picture of a woman. Very, very, very up close. And Randall's response as the customer runs away screaming is, I think you can see your kidneys. But the thing was that was really like, obviously that's kind of normal nowadays because of movies like Clerks and Kevin Smith's movies in general. Chasing Amy got really graphic in dialogue. I
know what finger cuffs are now.
But back then, that was, like, really taboo, and this was, like, breaking down, like, barriers.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, this movie was known for just not holding back at all.
It was groundbreaking in every way possible.
And there's always those little things, too. Like, the great thing, a lot of people seem to notice it nowadays, but not so much back then. If you look, you wonder why the jizz mopper customer is so offended. If you look, the customer that's offended by Randall's jizz mopper speech is buying glass cleaner and paper towels. Yeah, and there's those moments that just cut away from things. Like, you have your big moments of dialogue. Like, there's like, 1 minute they're talking about, like, Snowball. Like, there's, in the sequel, there's the ass-to-mouth conversation, which is it's almost like a deleted scene from this one.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they're talking about this great big theory Randall has about the end of Return of the Jedi and the independent contractors. And the brilliance that scene leads to, where the guy talks about the gangster that his friend worked for, that he was just putting shingles on for, and how that shit happens. So the independent contractors on the Death Star, it's their own damn fault.
Yeah.
Even when, like, it has nothing to do with it at all. Like, when they're talking about the egg guy, the guy that has to find, like, the absolute perfect dozen of eggs, and he can't mix and match, or else he goes insane. And the woman is telling them how she has seen it, and she goes into this whole dialogue about how he's probably a guidance counselor, and come to think of it, my guidance counselor was pretty worthless. And then she says, yeah, when you do a job, you need to do something that's worthwhile, otherwise you'll go crazy. That's why I manually masturbate animals for artificial insemination. And she just leaves it at that. So, by the way, I might add, as far as the movie's soundtrack is concerned, the song Chewbacca is placed perfectly within the Return of the Jedi conversation.
Totally agreed.
Anyway, what I was talking about was the little things that kind of branch off from that. Like, the movie is basically endless dialogue, but it takes these little breaks to just have, like, these silent moments. Like, there's the scene in the middle of the Return of the Jedi conversation. We see Jay eating junk food off the racks and then running out of the store. There's the moment where he reunites with Caitlin. And it's just right in the middle of the scene for no reason, just as, like, a little interlude. He meets up with Caitlin, and then Silent Bob walks up with a boombox, and he presses play, and Jay just starts to do this dance. And then we go into this whole scene of Dante and Caitlin making up and setting a date and doing all that, where he's basically blowing off Veronica and making himself a bit of an unlikable character, but we'll get to that in a minute. And then once this scene is ended, we cut back to the dancing scene. And it's this beautiful moment where Silent Bob, who has been completely stone-faced the whole movie, just breaks.
Yeah.
Just breaks down, to put it mildly. So, also I read somewhere, apparently Jason Mewes had, like, stage fright for that scene.
Yeah.
I guess all the crew members had to leave so he would do the dancing for that scene.
He's obviously, in later movies, definitely got over his stage fright in every single way possible, especially when we're talking about Zack and Mary.
I was going to say that, yes. Okay, so anyway, now that we've talked about the anatomy of Jason Mewes.
Oh, dear God. And the Goodbye Horses scene.
Oh, my Okay, another one of those good moments is it's the scene where Dante is calling the newspaper to see if there's a misprint, to see if it's not his Caitlin that's getting married to the Asian design major. And when he gets the idea to call the newspaper, there's a cat that just hangs around the store. I don't think they know who it belongs to.
No.
And when he gets the idea, he just sets the litter box down on the counter and he goes to the phone. And then in the middle of Dante's conversation, we just cut to this customer who doesn't say anything. He just walks up, and the litter box is just there. And he doesn't even question it. He just waits. And then we cut back to Dante talking, and then suddenly the cat is there, and it's using the litter box, and the customer is just watching this.
Yeah.
And then by the time Dante gets off the phone, the customer's gone.
I don't know what that guy was into. And you don't want to know either.
And it's also, you got to give it credit, because apparently Kevin Smith didn't want to shoot it in the grainy black and white.
No.
Apparently he wanted it to actually be a color movie.
Yep.
But the thing is I don't think it would have the personality it does in color. I actually worried about that when Clerks 2 came out. Ended up being fine.
Yeah, it was great.
I think this one, I don't know. But the thing is it almost kind of feels like, it's kind of like a documentary. Like, it actually feels like some dude is just hanging out with some cheap camera while these dudes work at this video store and hangs out with the people outside. Like when, his cousin from Moscow is there. What's the name of his band?
Oh, God.
I don't remember. The song is Berserker.
It's Berserker,
Their
yeah.
band had a funny name, and I can't remember what it is now. But anyway, and it gave it more of an authentic quality. And more of, like, it kind of made it feel more natural. Like, obviously, these are actors that Kevin Smith just kind of knew or basically picked up off the street. And they'd never acted before in their lives.
Nope.
Apparently, Brian O'Halloran had been on, I don't know if he had been on stage before. He's been on stage. I don't know if it was before Clerks or if it's been since Clerks. But I don't know if he had experience going into this or not. But most of them...
First role.
Yeah. Like, I think specifically, I read that Jeff Anderson hadn't done anything like this.
No, he hasn't.
And yeah, there are moments, like, sometimes, like, there can be moments like in Gus Van Sant's Elephant. There are times where, like, obviously he just used kids that, like, went to that school.
Mm-hmm.
And they tripped over their dialogue sometimes, but it made it feel kind of natural. That's kind of the same thing here. Sometimes it feels a little... You can tell it's somebody that's never been in front of a camera before tripping over scripted dialogue. But for the most part, it feels fine. Like, obviously, he's like owned up to this too, and it's fine. But obviously, Muse was kind of the most obvious as far as inexperience doing this at first. Granted, he made up for that by memorizing the entire script of Dogma because he didn't want to piss off Alan
Rickman. Yeah, I was getting ready to say that actually.
Like, there's one particular scene I've always wondered. I guess the fact that I have to question it if it wasn't scripted, I guess, is good because it felt authentic enough for me to ask. But I'm pretty sure it was actually Jason Mewes and not Jay. But I've always wondered about the scene where he and Silent Bob come in towards the end to talk to Dante after their shift is over.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're drug dealers, even though we never once see them do drugs. Or,
sell drugs.
I think throughout the entire series.
Yeah.
We never actually see them sell drugs.
Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back with Ethan Suplee at the very end with the $15 little man.
That was the beginning. Ethan Suplee was the beginning of Clerks 2.
I was talking about the
beginning of Jay and Silent Bob with the kids. Remember Randall like chases them off before they can do it?
But that's the only time that you ever see that actually happen in the movies.
Yeah. Anyway, the one scene where they go into the counter and they're talking to Dante, there's a scene where Jay is saying a line. He's talking about something his grandma used to say or something. When he's talking about, like, well, I don't know, she also used to piss and shit herself all the time. So. But he starts to say the line and then he says, no, wait, I fucked up. And then he says the line over again. I've never been able to tell if that was Jay or Jason Mewes that just said, no, wait, I fucked up.
Like when someone tries to tell Bobcat Goldthwait a joke. Same principle.
I think that was Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith just kind of kept the take.
I have a feeling he probably
because,
just kept the take.
I did read that the scene where Silent Bob finally breaks the silence for the first time and says, "There's a lot of fine-looking women in the world, but they don't all bring you lasagna at work. Most of them just cheat on you." Was supposed to be Jason Mewes' line, but he couldn't get it out, so Smith just said he'd make it Silent Bob's one line. Obviously, I struggled with it just now, but
Yeah.
he wrote the fucking thing, so he said it just fine.
Yes.
But a lot of the time, like more so than not, the acting is surprisingly really good for people that don't have experience.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff Anderson really stands out.
Oh, absolutely.
Like there are a couple of times where he seems to trip over something, like when he's talking about his cousin that broke his neck trying to suck his own dick. There's a couple of lines in there where he seems to kind of trip over.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, he's really good and goes through his big monologues like nothing. Especially when he has the big monologue at the end about when he just goes off on Dante for being the way that he is and saying, "What if we think we're so high and mighty? What the fuck are we still doing here?"
Yeah.
So anyway. So, alright, where was I? Oh, God. You need an editor.
No, I just need to I need to unplug the phone.
Kevin Smith's his own editor, get him.
Yeah. He's kind of busy right now.
One of the great scenes that really stands, also the woman that plays Veronica.
Yes.
Who apparently is on the cast list for 3.
Really?
Apparently he dug her up from wherever she was. He went and found her. But anyway, I also think she's really good in this.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't remember her having one of those moments where she seemed to kind of trip over something.
No, her stuff is pretty seamless.
And there's the by the way, I already talked about how he has some experience now, but I do give Brian O'Halloran credit for the fact that I would have never guessed he hadn't acted in a movie before this.
And he's got to be the lead here too.
He must have made love to that script beforehand.
Indeed.
But the one scene that's really impressive is the actress that plays Caitlin. The interesting thing is when she and Dante have the scene in the video store where they basically make up and she says she's not marrying the Asian design major, Sang. Sang, like past tense. That whole scene is like a 5-minute scene of just them doing dialogue. And it never cuts. It's just all one shot that never cuts to anything else while they have this 5-minute dialogue. And there's never really... It never really feels like they're trying to improv or any of that. It actually feels like two people having a real conversation. So that's impressive for non-actors.
Yeah, definitely.
At the time. So yeah, there are movies like this, like everybody has the movie that got them started, where you have the grainy black and white, and it's basically just slackers doing their thing and trying to find meaning in life and trying to make themselves better at things. But everybody in Clerks basically knows that they're a loser, and it's just whether or not they're going to change that or not.
Yeah.
Whether they're going to get over their own stubbornness to do that. So, you have movies like Drama's Just Stranger Than Paradise, which I fucking hate. This really rises above that. So, this is probably the best of the Dazed and Confused is up there too.
Mm.
So, I would say that's what makes Clerks as beloved as it is, and why it's so you would think a movie like this that's just all dialogue and tackles taboo content from 1994 would eventually be dated.
No.
But it's still finding audiences today, and people still quote every line of it. Still the whole 37 in a row.
I still use 37 to this day.
I still love Try Not to Suck Any Dick on the way through the parking lot. I love, and the great thing about the dialogue is just some of the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
When you think about what this means, my favorite quote, just because of just how simply it puts the absurdity of what he's even saying. My favorite line of the movie is, "This job would be great if it wasn't for the fucking customer."
Yeah. And everyone can identify with Dante and Randall in some way or another in their times they've worked in their lives.
Which basically just sums up the fact that that's what they want to do, is just hang out.
Yeah.
So that's why Clerks is what it is. It's basically, I don't even know if you can call it a cult movie anymore. I think it has such a following now, and so many people love it, and so many people have heard about it from other people.
Yeah, definitely.
It's its own thing now. So, that's why people love Clerks, and that's why Clerks is what it is.
Yeah, I love the movie in every way possible. It's the reason why, time and time again, if you talk about all the movies I've seen in my life, that'd be the one I always jump to as the best. I'm a big Kevin Smith fan.
Alright. So, as far as Empire Records is concerned, Empire Records is a cult movie.
Yes,
by
definitely.
definition. It's that movie where everybody, you don't feel like many people have heard of it.
Yeah.
And you generally heard about it from another person. Like,
Yeah.
they told you, "Have you seen it?" And oh my god, it's like, I watch it all the time.
What's
And
that
then,
movie?
like, when you're, like, in your everyday life and you hear somebody say a quote from Empire Records, you feel like that person's a long-lost brother. Like, just the other day, I heard somebody say, "I don't feel the need to explain my art to you, Warren." And I was like, holy shit.
It just boggles your mind that someone just like you knows that movie just like you do.
So, basically the start of it is, it's Rory Cochrane sitting in the office, and the manager, Joe, who is Anthony LaPaglia, is basically giving him the job of closing the store for the night. And he has 3 jobs. Technically he has 2 jobs. He has to count the money twice, and then he has to keep his hands off of Joe's stuff, which is his beer, his cigars, and his drumsticks.
Simple enough.
Naturally, by the end of the night, Lucas has gotten a hold of the beer, the drumsticks, and the cigars. And he has counted the money twice, but he comes to the conclusion that Empire Records is basically going to be sold to the chain Music Town.
Mm-hmm.
So, the lovable, noble idiot that he is, he decides to get on his bike, take all the money from the store, and bet on it in Atlantic City, where he loses it in his second round of craps.
Yeah.
And basically the movie goes from there. He comes back, he confesses to AJ and Mark, and then he flees the scene. So, and I could say the quotes of Lucas, but we would be here all day.
Yeah.
Lucas is basically a human quote machine in this movie. He's definitely one of those ones where if you hear somebody say one of his quotes, you found a new best friend. One of my personal favorites is, who knows where thoughts come from? They just appear. So, what the great thing that Empire Records does is, first off, another thing that I think would make it a cult movie is Clerks was loved by everybody.
Yeah.
As you can see on the cover itself, critics took to it like mad. I think it won a prize at Cannes.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody took to it. I think Empire Records was generally disliked by critics. Not just not well-liked, like disliked by critics. But the thing is I think generally they saw it as kind of the...
Anti-Clerks?
It was the year after Clerks. Clerks was 94, Empire Records was 95, and there was basically a whole bunch of this shit going on.
Yeah.
Because of Clerks and Linklater. And I think they just saw it as another, teens not knowing what to do with their lives, a day in the work. We've seen all this shit before.
Yeah.
They don't care. So they basically just kind of check themselves at the door and say, well, this is shit I don't care about. I know because I've done that with so many movies.
Yeah, as have I.
But the thing that makes Empire Records so different is the fact that pretty much everybody, unlike those other movies where I check myself at the door, don't have characters that are so relatable. It make the story like feel real and authentic. Like where people in normal movies like this feel like caricatures or just cardboard cutouts that are gonna go through the movie cliches.
Yeah.
Most people in their life, I think, know like Joe or have worked for Joe, and they know a Deb or they know everybody knows the lovable weirdo like Mark. Everybody had that friend. And they're all in this one setting, and they all work together, and they all basically have this bond. Except Deb, who basically isolates herself from everybody. But like I said, we all know that person that basically hates everybody.
Yeah.
But has a soft side they don't want to show.
Yeah.
They decide to, run a blade over their wrist overnight and then show it off to everybody the next day after they've shaved their head. I'm going to be honest, Robin Tunney does pull that look off. It's not an easy look to pull off, but I think she could pull off pretty much anything. And of course, we've all fallen in love with a Corey. Even if maybe sometimes those Corys are more like Gina's.
Yeah.
We've all fallen in love with one of them.
Indeed.
And that's and another thing that really makes it stand apart from the other movies is the performances. Two stand out in particular, but one I really want to talk about is, this might sound like an exaggeration, or it might sound like I'm just kind of describing it in one way, because I don't really know how else to put it. I'm being serious when I say this. This is no exaggeration. I think Anthony LaPaglia is Oscar-worthy in this movie.
Yeah.
Like,
I can see that.
I really do. Because he perfectly embodies that. What's really interesting, especially, is the relationship between him and Lucas is really interesting to watch and try to decipher. Because Joe is basically Lucas's father figure.
Yeah.
But Joe spends the whole movie hating him. But it's not so much like because here's the thing, Lucas took the money from the store and spent it in Atlantic City, and it's all gone. Everybody's going to be fired and jobless because of what he did. And even though, yeah, Joe gets pissed off and yells at him and makes him sit on the couch and eventually beats the shit out of him in the office.
Yeah.
One of the first things he does is he goes to Lucas and says, "Did you need the money? Were you in trouble? Because I can help you." So they have that relationship that they have, but the movie never really
goes into.
We see it towards the end, but at the beginning of the movie, we have no idea that is a relationship they have had for quite some time. Somebody on the internet, I think, had a theory that Joe's like his adoptive father or something.
That's believable.
Once again, it's never confirmed or denied, so...
Yeah, it's always a thought you can have in the back of your mind.
And that's really the kind of relationship they have. I really love the scene towards the end, on the swing at the end, when they're basically discussing the problems. And Joe's basically trying to make the decision of, eventually, obviously, the manager's going to realize the money's gone, he's going to have to call the cops. And Lucas, he's basically telling Lucas to leave so he doesn't get arrested, and Lucas refuses to leave his side. You're not going to find character development like that in your normal teen angst movie.
No. Maybe a John Hughes movie.
Yeah. And then you have, like in the mid-90s this era.
I understand.
When everybody was trying to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Most of those movies probably got thrown away into $1 DVD bins and nobody even remembers them, so... I guess it's time to talk about this now. I'm gonna be totally honest. I don't know if it's the name or not. Okay? But here's the thing. Another thing that might be seen as a cliche is the relationship with AJ and Corey. About how she's the girl that he's always loved, and he's trying to build up the courage to tell her, but he never can. Yeah. So he basically says this is the day. He even does the thing, I'm sure we've all done at some point, where he actually says, he gets so determined that this is going to be the day, he comes up with the most obscure possible time to do it. So he goes up to Joe and he says, "I'm going to tell Corey I love her by 1:37 p.m. And he spends all day looking at his watch.
Yeah.
And you can just see the authentic nervousness leading up to it. There's even one particular shot that's a close-up of him looking at his watch, and it's this interesting subtlety I didn't always notice, but there's one shot where it's like almost 1:37, and the close-up shot of him looking at the watch, the hand is like shaking. And then and it doesn't feel like the cliched, because you could kind of see AJ as the cliched artist, emo hair type. But the interesting thing is that they did is the way Liv Tyler plays Corey. Liv Tyler's performance in this is amazing.
Definitely.
Because it could come off as phony, and she's even called out as a phony by Deb and Gina eventually. Because she's like that overly meek character, and you think it might be an act, but her performance is actually so consistent, it actually makes it believable that that's just the way she really is. Because we're already given her backstory that she's got the overbearing dad that's like constantly trying to make her a success, which is why she is now doing speed behind everybody's backs. So, which by the way, not many people realized the little hint of that earlier when Gina asks her how she had time to make cupcakes while doing exams and getting ready for work. It's because she's on speed.
Makes sense.
Alright, and then there's the scene on the roof. And it's just so... There's something... I find this scene... I've watched this movie over and over and over again, and every single time this scene is so hard to watch. I don't know if it's the authenticity or if it's the fact that Liv Tyler's so convincing, the fact that the name matches. I feel like I, myself, am being rejected by Liv Tyler when I watch this scene. But the way it plays out when he basically confesses his love to her after she's thrown herself at Rex Manning, and she's realized that her teen idol has been like this sleazy. It's actually only in the director's cut. It's kind of abrupt in the theatrical version. In the regular version, it's like she's about to, she just strips down to the bra and panties, and she's getting ready to go over to him, and then she just kind of changes her mind when he unzips his pants. Mm-hmm. But there's a line in the director's cut that kind of gives you the idea of why she'd run away from him, realizing how creepy and sleazy he is. In the scene, he's eating a salad. And she's getting ready to approach him, and he does the scene where he unzips his pants. But the scene goes on, and he grabs the bottle of dressing and he shakes it, and he says, "I hope you like the taste of blue cheese." And that's what makes her run out of the room.
Well, yeah.
But anyway, so she goes up onto the roof, and she's always loved AJ, but she has to reject him at this point in time just because of the horrible timing, because she's just had her heart broken by Rex Manning. Mm-hmm. And drama ensues. But it's just the way she says it and the way he reacts to it, the whole scene feels so uncomfortably real. It's really hard to watch.
Yeah.
And it's a credit to all involved in this scene, especially Liv Tyler. And then you have Renee Zellweger's character, who is for most of the movie, they build her up as the slut that sleeps with everybody, basically. She's the one that's freaking out about the new Music Town rules of the you can't wear revealing clothing. That's like heartbreaking to her. And of course she does the thing where she comes out in nothing but her panties and the Music Town apron. But then by the end of the movie, we start to realize that she basically is the way she is, basically because she envies Corey's perfect life, and she doesn't really know how to be that. And she basically just tries to drown that in excess, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've talked about the blue cheese scene, should we talk about how hilarious Maxwell Caulfield is?
Yes, completely.
Who you might remember from Grease 2.
Grease 2.
Basically plays Rex Manning, who is your average, cliche, washed-up singer. Who was once a teen idol and is now... He's basically, if you want to put it in today's terms, he's basically what Justin Bieber's going to be in 30 years.
Less than 30 years if he's at this rate.
Assuming Justin Bieber lives that long.
Yeah.
And there's the constant jokes at that were like pretty much any time, like Debbie Mazar is his manager.
Yeah.
And she just nonchalantly says, so what do you guys think of Rex's new album? And everybody just laughs at her. And then there's the scenes where he's talking to the people approaching him. Like, there's the woman that knows the lyrics to all of his songs, and she's like 80. And then there's the really young girl that walks up, and she's like, she hands him the paper, and he says, who am I making this out to? And she says, Denise. And he's like trying to hit on her, and he's like, oh, I've always loved that name. And she's like, actually, Denise is my mom. I don't even know who you are.
Shooting his ego down just a bit.
And he makes the comment, does your mom still have her own teeth? Never mind, move along. And the moment where the woman says, oh my God, you were my favorite singer when I was a teenager. Who's your favorite singer now? Oh, it's still you. He has the horrible haircut and the bad suit.
Yes.
Let's talk about the changes in the director's cut, by the way. I think this is actually the most well-known version now. But in case people don't know, this one's like an hour 48 or something. The director's cut, the original cut's only an hour and a half. There's like 16 new minutes of footage. And they still didn't restore Tobey Maguire's deleted scene, go figure.
Wow.
There are a few changes that make scenes make a lot more sense. Like, the blue cheese thing makes more sense that Corey would run away from him. As far as Lucas's decision to go to Atlantic City, there's this whole beginning segment where before he gets into Joe's beer and cigars and drumsticks and all that, he has an encounter with this woman who talks herself into the store after it's closed. And they basically have a conversation where she convinces him to do like a heroic act that'll like change the course of history. And he has a line later where he talks about how I did something and it didn't change the course of history. I don't know if that's still in the original cut or not, but it's a reference to that deleted scene that was restored in this cut. The scene where I don't know why they leave this out because it's kind of an important plot point, but there's a restored scene where we find out Corey's going to Harvard because her sister shows up on her bike and brings her the acceptance letter that came in the mail. The one thing they changed that I really don't like, maybe it's a copyright thing because they used a song lyric, but it changed the scene in such a bad way. It's the only thing I didn't like that they added. And it makes no sense to me unless it was a copyright issue because of the song lyric. But in the original version, when everybody tells Rex to leave, his line is he looks at all of them and he says, "Why don't you all just fade away?" And then he walks out. I always thought that was a great exit.
Yeah, definitely.
In the director's cut, they'd all just bash him, and then he says, "You know what? You're right," and then he leaves. It's very anticlimactic.
Yeah.
I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. I'm guessing it's because "Why don't you all just fade away" as a song lyric, and it had something to do with that. I don't know. I wouldn't think they'd consciously change that line.
No, probably not.
I would hope not. And then of course they all have this catharsis when they have this fake funeral for Deb, which is a really good. This is basically Rob and Tony's money scene. And then of course there's the comedic gold that is Ethan Embry in this movie, still being credited as Ethan Randall back then.
Wow.
He's as quotable as Lucas, I think. Well, you have Lucas's lines like when Warren says, "Why don't you shove him up your ass?" and Lucas says, "Because it would hurt a lot more." And the one of the best lines of the movie is one word. Just Lucas's delivery of one word is one of the best lines in the movie. when Joe is first confronting him about where the money is, and he's saying, "Well, the money's gone." He's like, "I know it's gone. Where's it gone to?" "It's in Atlantic City." "What's it doing in Atlantic City?" "Recirculate." And then it's just Lucas is so intentionally getting under his skin because they've established this obviously. There's no argument here. But then Joe is saying, "I need to get the money. Where's the money?" Lucas's response is, I told you it's in Atlantic City. And then there's the whole, what was it? There was one more of those, and I forgot what it was now. Of course, there's the whole thing with Brennan Sexton III, who was known now as one of the killers in Boys Don't Cry, but he is the shoplifter who is known only as Warren Beatty.
Yes.
Even though he has the great line at the end where he finally says, "Stop calling me Warren, my name's not fucking Warren." But we never learn his real name.
Doesn't he have a name tag that says Warren, too?
Yeah, they give him one at the end. Somehow he escaped jail, and he appears at the end again, but who cares? The ending is happy. Nobody's going to question
The ending is awesome.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that now. And you're probably not going to like me for this. Well, let me just get this on the table right now. To Clerks' credit, there would not be an Empire Records without Clerks.
Correct.
Because most movies, all the way down to Waiting, in like, what was it, like 2005 or something, all those movies give credit to Clerks.
Yeah.
They wouldn't, without that inspiration from Kevin Smith, they wouldn't have had. That was the word I was looking for earlier.
Inspiration?
Kevin Smith was inspired by Richard Linklater.
Wow. And it finally comes full circle. So
you have this ending where Renee Zellweger performs with the band. By the way, this is the only time Renee Zellweger sang in a movie before Chicago.
Yep.
And she hasn't since, because Renee Zellweger disappeared off the face of the earth. But anyway, and Cora decides she's going to reconcile with AJ. Which, by the way, I need to mention this too. Another great thing about Lucas is the scenes where he breaks the fourth wall. And there's that last there's always a great one. One of my favorites, another, is when he loses the money in Atlantic City. Obviously, he stole the money without anybody knowing, and he took it to Atlantic City, and he lost it all. And his first response is to look into the camera and say, I wonder if I'll be held responsible for this. So his last breaking the fourth wall is everything is gone. Joe has bought the store from Mitchell. Everything. No, the cops aren't going to be called on anybody. Corey's going to Harvard. Eddie's going to art school. Everything is happy. And so it's Lucas leaned back on the desk, and he's just watching everything happen from the window, and he says, everything is perfect. And then he breaks the fourth wall one more time and says, almost perfect. And then we get Corey and Eddie's reconciliation, where she basically convinces him to go to art school and to not... to basically not give up anything on what he wants to do because of her, because he's great at what he does and he needs to do it. And he needs to basically not worry about her and do what he needs to do. Mm-hmm. Which is when he breaks the news to her that his art school is basically very close to her, so they could be together. And you have the scene where she falls back into his arms, and at that exact moment, the sign that has been not working the whole movie finally comes on. And then there's that great epilogue where they're all dancing together on the roof. It sounds cheesy when you say it out loud, but just in context, everything about it is just why my heart always goes to Empire Records, despite how groundbreaking Clerks may be. So, if these two are sitting on a shelf, I would choose Empire Records with my heart every time. So, that's what I would choose between these two. But they both are what they are because of it. So, that's pretty much that. It's basically... yeah. I don't know if it's because of that or what, but obviously AJ and Corey is like one of my favorite movie romances ever. So, that's that.
Next week, don't know what the verse is going to be yet. Actually, we're going to discuss that in a few minutes off camera. So, any parting words?
I think that's it.